Okay, so they were just talking about work, and at my job, we have to go through this active shooter training quarterly. Yeah, so that means once every 3 months, did that back in my head. Once every 3 months, I have to take time out of my day for them to remind me that if someone is shooting at me, I should run. Growing up on the mean streets of Pennsylvania, I already knew that. And the thing is, I understand it's important training. There are some people that have lived sheltered lives. They need that information. Once. It's the every 3 month thing that gets me. Because I gotta be honest with you, if you need to be reminded 4 times a year to run away from gunfire, I don't think you should have a job. Any job, anywhere, doing anything, for anybody, at any time, for any amount of money. And the reason we have so many active shooter lessons is because there are so many active shooters. And the reason we have so many active shooters is because there are so many guns. But fear not, I have come up with a solution for the gun problem in this country. Yes, me. I did it. I figured it out. You're welcome. And I know that there are probably some of you in this audience right now like, Jason, you may be funny, but if you try and come after my guns, it's going to be the last thing you ever try to do, monkey boy. Relax. I'm not coming after your guns. And now everybody in the audience should be confused. So he has a solution for the gun problem. He's not coming after the guns. Is he high? I wish. See, the problem with doing anything with guns is the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is just way too vague. It is one sentence. One sentence that describes who has access to deadly weapons. A sentence that was written over 200 years ago when the most popular weapon was a musket. A weapon that you could fire 2, maybe 3 times a minute if you were lucky. And do you honestly think that if the Founding Fathers had any idea the kind of weapons we would have available now, do you not think that they would have added a few more words to the Second Amendment? A couple sentences? A paragraph, perhaps? Because it's so vague, that's the reason why so many people think, like, I should be able to have any kind of weapons I want, any guns. And unfortunately, the courts sort of agree, because they can't say no. Although there are certain weapons that you're just never going to have. The government's never going to allow it. You're never going to have rocket launchers, for one thing.
Oh,
I mean, yeah. You're not going to have laser weapons. The government's going to keep the best toys for themselves. Which is why it always amuses me when someone says, I need my guns in case the government goes bad.
Oh, yes, they have lasers.
The government has AH-64 Apache attack helicopters. Each one of which is equipped with a 30mm chain gun that is optically targeted. Meaning that whatever the gunner looks at, that thing doesn't exist anymore. It also has rocket pods and Hellfire missiles. That's not a nickname. The missile is literally named Hellfire. And you think your grandpa's 30-06 is going to level the playing field against that? No. If the government's coming after you, you're screwed. No sense deluding yourself. But even with that, every now and then, someone will try and put any kind of restriction on guns. And as soon as that happens, the NRA gets their underwear in a twist. They call it whatever politician they bought that week, and the law goes away. So, if you can't go after the guns because of the Second Amendment and the NRA, what's my plan? Simple. 7-day waiting period for bullets. I don't think that idea is getting the amount of applause it deserves. Because I've read the Second Amendment, I've read the Constitution. It doesn't say a blasted thing about bullets.
yeah.
And the thing is, it's not a 7-day waiting period for however many boxes of bullets you want. Oh no, it's 7-day waiting period per bullet. Are you starting to see the genius of this plan now? Hunting accidents, thing of the past. You know, you're out there, it's 4:30 in the morning, sun hasn't even thought about rising yet. You hear a rustling in the woods and say, oh yeah, That deer's on my wall. Wait a minute. Haven't seen Billy in a while. And I had to wait for these bullets. I better check. Billy, is that you? Yeah, Tommy. Thanks for not shooting me. You know, again. Mass shootings, another thing of the past. By the time you have enough ammunition to have a mass shooting, you're too old to carry out a mass shooting. You remember that Las Vegas attack back in 2017? By the time that guy had that many bullets, he would have been like 190 years old. And at that age, I very much doubt he could lift a gun. I mean, it's not going to fix everything. There's still going to be things like crimes of passion, but even those will drop down because it's hard to stay mad at someone for 7 days. And if you are mad after 7 days, they've got a 7-day head start. How bad do you want to shoot them that you're going to go chasing them? People get mad anytime someone mentions gun control. Like other weapons aren't available. You got knives, bows and arrows, brass knuckles, swords.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but whenever I hear stuff about a mass school shooting, I don't even listen to it anymore. I've heard that tragedy enough. I don't want to hear it. But if you hear sword fight at Bryson Elementary, you're going to want to check out that story. Did someone bring a sword to school, or was it a couple of 5th graders going all Highlander on each other? Swords would have made school so much better. School was scary, which is my tremendously awkward way of getting to the next thing I want to talk about. Because the last time I was up here, I was talking about how teachers don't really have the ability to scare students like they used to. Now, this was back in junior high or high school. I can't really remember which. It doesn't really matter. But I was in a health class that was teaching sex education, which is a lie. They were basically just trying to convince us not to have sex. That's the only explanation I can give for them describing it in the most boring way possible. It's like they were trying to explain how to put together a cabinet. And then the man inserts tab A into slot B. After they had taken all the joy out of that subject, they went on to describe sexually transmitted diseases. You know, gonorrhea, syphilis, herpes, AIDS, which was the new kid on the block back then. And boy howdy, did they not spare any details when it came to that stuff. Every single hideous side effect that you got from bumping part of your anatomy up against part of another person's anatomy. And they went after that over and over. To the point where the teacher scared me so much about sexually transmitted diseases that I convinced myself I had one. Even though I had never had sex. This is an absolutely true story. You know how it is anytime you hear about a new disease, you start being like hyper aware of anything that's even close to a symptom? Well, that's what I was doing. And a couple of days after the plague talk, I was going to the bathroom and things didn't feel right. Of course they're not going to. I'm like way too focused. And I think to myself, oh no. Oh no. I just learned about this. Oh, I've got it. Now, quick side note. I am intelligent. I have legitimately tested at genius level. If you give me a problem to solve, if you give me a test to take, I'll put myself up against anybody. But when it comes to real life, normal human experiences, I'm dumber than a bag of hammers. And I'll be the first to admit it. So there I am, I'm panicking because I've convinced myself that I have one of, if not all of, the diseases I just learned about. Which wouldn't have been so bad. Except for the fact that I had a doctor's appointment coming up. So I confessed this To my parents.
Oh.
And Dad, God bless him, had to give me the talk. Which is awkward in the best of circumstances. It was tremendously awkward in this circumstance. Not just because I had not, in fact, had sex, nor did any signs point to that changing anytime soon. But the talk itself is just uncomfortable. I mean, if you've had the talk with your parents or your kids and it wasn't awkward, you could legitimately make money explaining how you managed that miracle. So we get through that. Then I go to the doctor's appointment. And of course I get a clean bill of health because remember, virgin. But I'm still convinced that it's just a delaying tactic and pretty soon stuff is just going to start falling off of me. We fast forward a day or two, and then my rational brain finally comes back from wherever the hell it had been for the last couple days, and takes a look around the shattered parts of my psyche and says, "So guys, what'd I miss? I have a venereal disease." You what? Okay, so not great news, but who's the girl? No girl. Okay, that's more disappointing. Who's the guy? No guy. You better think long and hard about how you answer this next question, because it's not looking good for you. If it wasn't a girl or a guy, who or what did you have sex with? Nobody, nothing. You're telling me that you have a sexually transmitted disease and you haven't had sex? Uh-huh. So you're what, like the reverse Virgin Mary? I know it doesn't make sense. Dude, Twin Peaks doesn't make sense. You are certifiably insane. Say it again, but slower. What kind of disease do you have? I have a sexually transmitted. Oh no! This is one of the dumbest things that has ever happened in my life, easily in the top 10. And yeah, I was a teenager when it happened, but that's no excuse for this level of stupidity. I understand that. And as bad as I felt for putting myself through that, mental anguish, I felt worse for my parents. Although, honestly, let's face it, this is pretty much what I was like back then. Little more hair, little less weight, a lot more acne. I'm sure that later that night, they just looked at each other and just said, "Ain't no way." And you might be wondering, Jason, how did your parents react whenever you told them the reality of this ridiculous situation? So, about a week or so ago when I confessed it, it was too stupid and embarrassing to bring it up at the time. And eventually, so much time has passed, I couldn't figure out a way to work it into conversation. I mean, it's not the kind of thing you bring up over Sunday dinner now, is it? So I told them the story, and they basically just looked at me, and it came down to like, yeah, that kind of tracks with the way you are.
Aww.
It's true! So, I'm telling you this story for two reasons. One, because I think it is a ridiculous story, and I figured you would be amused by it. Thank you for proving me right. The other reason is, I'm sure some of you out there are parents. And your kids are going to do stupid things. Sometimes mind-bogglingly stupid things. In that case, I just hope that you think about this story and you cut him a little slack. At least it wasn't bad as that guy's Friday Night, as bad as that guy Friday Night Live. In fact, that's a hope of mine. in like a couple of years, some young adult walks up to me and says, you know what? I got out of getting grounded because of your stupid story. Thank you. And speaking of gratitude, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. It was lovely talking with you all tonight. I hope you have a wonderful evening, a wonderful summer, until I see you all again. Good night.